Okay, it looks like the stream was deleted on Facebook. So we're live, and the introduction is the stream was deleted on Facebook. This is Reverend Jodi Suson, and I am the owner of Suson Essentials, and we are having the podcast Self Care. And we have Michelle Froedge, the Rockstar Coach.
Hello.
Mhm. And it looks like Facebook has been a lot of fun this week so far. Okay. And we don't worry about it because this is live streamed anyway. And whatever Facebook doesn't get, we put elsewhere anyhow. So, with that being said, we have a very important show today about the power of the pause. And I'm just going to do a short introduction about my thoughts about this. Michelle, I'm going to ask you to give your thoughts about it. And then we're going to give people tools um, about what they can do to access the pause button, so to speak, right? Um, and um, Michelle, if you could do me a favor, I had to edit our banner with your contact information,
Mhm.
and if you could kindly send me that in the private chat so I can put our information across. So, the power of the pause. Why is this so important? First of all, if you're anything like me and how I was in my past, I had racing thoughts most of my life. And I would sit in the boardroom at a major bank where I was launching the debit card program and couldn't shut up. So not only did I have racing thoughts, but my mouth was moving consistently with those racing thoughts. So then we make decisions and we proceed quickly when we don't give our mind the space to be. We don't consider our body and our mind and our spirit sacred space. We don't consider how we treat others as sacred space. And if we can reframe, literally reframe how we approach life, that our words are sacred space, and we'll get into deeper of that. How we present to the world and what we get back in return will be unrecognizable. Michelle, go ahead.
The pause is so important because when we react instead of respond, we can say or do things that later we may regret. And just what you were saying, Jodi, our integrity is on the line here, our character, and our authenticity. And so, even if something gets spewed out of our mouth, is that really authentically how we want to be? It may or may not be. And so that pause gives us the chance to take all of those things into consideration in a millisecond and then respond rather than react.
So what's happened for you? I mean, and or for others that you coach, right? Either story's fine. Let's talk about I mean, have you witnessed when people finally learn how to pause and how their life turns out differently when they do?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my own life. And this is an ongoing thing, right? Not every situation do I pause. And most of the time I regret it when I don't.
Mm,
But just in any type of conflict resolution or
mhm,
conflict situation, when I have been able to stay out of reactionary mode and pause and take things in, and then really allow them to process along with my intention, right? Because I always have an intention of peace, of, joy, of happiness, of, whatever it is. And so I have seen that when I do take that pause and remember my intention is never going to be to react. It's always going to be to respond. So when I have done that, things are so much smoother. Things can be resolved so much faster, and patterns are broken. So that for me is the biggest thing, not only in my own life, but in coaching my clients as well. When we can disrupt a pattern, then we're getting somewhere, because we're so programmed to whatever it is we're programmed to react to this with this kind of response to, whatever. And so when we can break that pattern, then we can start to reprogram, right? And put in new patterns in ways that we want to respond, in ways that we want to act. And therefore, we are changing our lives. Because if you change one part of your life, like if you change your relationship with your child, that's going to change your entire life. Because if your relationship had stayed this way, you would have ended up in this place. But if you shift it, then you're going to end up in this place. So the more things that you control self, right, by pausing and then ultimately reprogramming, then it starts to become natural and you don't have to think about it. Because let's be honest, at first, it's not necessarily easy. If it's something that you've been accustomed to doing, it just comes second nature. That's where we have to pause, and then we can start to disrupt that and reprogram.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning programming, because our programming impacts how we perceive things. And it's currently estimated that we're bombarded with 2 million bits of information every second. And we only pick up 126 bits of the 2 million bits, right? So our unconscious or subconscious mind has to delete, distort, or generalize the information. And so pausing to decide what information you really want to access and share allows you to be very intentional and allows you to have the outcome that you really desire to have. And when you think about the fact that we're absorbing 2 million bits of information every second, that's input overload for anybody. So the question is, I'm curious for people who are listening, what are you doing for yourself in your lives to put on the pause button? Do you realize that you're an input overload, right? And if you are an input overload, what are you doing? What are your tools? Okay. And while you're waiting to respond and to think it through, Michelle and I will share some tools of our own. You want to go first, Michelle, or?
Sure. Yeah, no worries. I love the do not disturb button on my phone. It is a wonderful thing, and I use it daily. A lot of times it's because I'm in appointments or something like that, but sometimes I need some space. I need some quiet. And if I don't do that, I will be tempted by every little notification, right? And the do not disturb button still allows people that I choose to be able to get through the barrier, right? So, family, obviously, the people that if there was an emergency, you would want them to be able to contact. I have those people. Outside of that, nobody gets through, which means I get to have space. I get to have me time, whatever that looks like. If that's relaxing, if that's doing my own work, if whatever it is, then so I love to use that. The other thing, because I feel like the phone is where most of that 2 million bits of information gets through to me, because I don't sit on a computer, I don't watch television, all of that stuff. So um, my phone is the biggest culprit. And
Too.
so I accidentally dropped my phone in water last night. And
Uh-oh.
it was about, I don't know, maybe 7 o'clock, maybe
Mhm.
7 o'clock. And so for the rest of the night, I turned it off so that it could dry out and hopefully not fry and all of that. Well, for about the first 30 minutes or so, I felt a little anxious, like I was missing something, like I forgot to put on underwear or something. You know what I mean? It's like, what's wrong there? What, something feels off, right? And then I just relaxed and I thought, there's not an emergency. If there is an emergency, people know how to get to my partner, right? And
Mhm.
and okay, what if I just don't have a phone for the rest of the day? Is it going to kill me? No. So
No.
then after that, I was able to relax, and it's amazing how freeing it was. And it was also amazing that I recognized very clearly how quickly I grab for it, right? And so
Mhm.
that's going to be something that I do on the regular. I'm not necessarily going to make a rule out of it that every night at this time, or whatever, but I am going to incorporate that, just like the do not disturb. I'm going to do it at various times throughout the week.
So
So
the going into the water, the toilet, the sink, which one? I'm
no,
just
I'm not
curious.
going to throw it in the sink. I'm going to turn it off.
Okay.
It's a little too expensive to take that risk.
Right? That's hilarious. That's
But yeah,
hilarious.
turning it off so I can really not only not be distracted, but like
Mhm.
be present in myself.
Right. Well, you know what I did before our show? Because you notice I only came on a few minutes before the show today.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I've had a new pattern that I'm instilling, which is to make sure that not only I am outside multiple times during the day, certainly in the morning and certainly at night, sundown, where we get the most red light. But I'm also taking the girls out, my two parrots. And so there was a lot of my attention was being pulled in many directions. And so what I did before the show is I went outside on the patio and I just took in the sun, and the sun is grounding, right? It's nature's health food store, right? And so um and going back to those notifications on your phone and putting on the do not disturb sign, um, those notifications are draining. Now, I never have my phone on either. Matter of fact, because and like you, right, a walking, breathing antenna, right? If somebody really wants to get in touch with me, I will get the energetic message. Trust me. Don't worry. I don't need a text to get that. Right? Um, I have universal text message, which is energy medicine. Um, but one of the things when I was in therapy for I think 5 years when I was disabled, and my counselor, Dr. Michelle Kukla, and I don't have one here to demonstrate, but it was on the picture. She handed me a remote control. She gave me a remote control. And what does a remote control have on it? It has a pause button. And, we've all been in those conversations where the other person won't stop talking. So then it was like, No, I swear I didn't turn them off. I'm not that magical.
I've
But,
definitely tried before. Psst, psst, psst.
yeah, right. And here's the thing about pausing. If you're vomiting on people, like, you better remember they can only take in 126 bits. So consider what you're saying, how much they really need to know, and that in a lot of circumstances, you actually don't owe people all the information that you think you need to give them. So, and then I would also say, on the other side of that coin, make sure you're transparent about what it is that you're doing. And that could be a quick text. You know, there was a person in my past where, going back a while ago, um, they did, we, I was officing at this place a long time ago. And I decided I wanted to leave. And they knew, and they decided to change the locks on me without telling me. So that's an example of not giving enough information and not pausing to think through about the what's going to be the outcome when you're holding somebody's stuff hostage, right? Um, Nanaba, she says, "Hey ladies, my phone is a distraction. I too have started using the DND button, the do not disturb notification." Yeah, Nanaba. So it's necessary. And the truth be it, because we're electrical beings and you're also intuitive, she's amazing. If you haven't met Nanaba yet, um, we'll make that happen. Um, so you're going to get pinged from the universe. Spirit will ping you. The person who's thinking of you, that message will go through. Um, so, anyways, back to the remote control. If you're having a conversation with somebody, it could be you're holding a remote control, just as a reminder, or it could be that you're holding a rock or, a glass, and whoever's holding the object is the one who's speaking. But keep in mind, it's still not um, it's still not a lease to provide an overflow of information. And Nan says she loves that, a ping from the universe. Oh yeah, you got that. Go ahead, Michelle.
What do you want me to speak to? Sorry.
I don't know. I saw you. You were probably talking to spirit. I'm like, okay. Well,
No, I was just
so
listening to what you were saying.
okay, you look like you were ready to share.
No.
Here's the thing. I'm going to go into water, and it absolutely relates. So we know scientifically that water holds emotions. And we also know that our cells are 90% water. And so if you're vomiting stuff on people, that energy is getting trapped in their cells unless they know how to release that energy. One of, I think it was one of the chapters in my book, at least it was a line, okay, don't know for sure, is about taming the tongue. Okay. And we have to tame the tongue. And so if you find that, and look, and I really want to give people permission to do this. If you find that your relationship with someone is electric, not in a good way, and you can't tame your tongue, there is no shame in walking away, people. None whatsoever, because the damage that will be done by both of you by being in the same room is never good. And it is very damaging. And as Michelle knows, my body was used as a petri dish for that. Remember with the what do you even call that? They were sores all over my legs, right? Remember you colored them in energetically before my honeymoon?
Mm,
I was on
yeah.
the way to the airport. I had my legs on the car dashboard, and Michelle was energetically cleaning up the sores on my legs so I could wear a bathing suit on the beach. So thank you. But it's harmful. And look, I've done it. And if you say to me that you haven't done it, I'm going to call you a liar. Michelle, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, not everyone is the same. There are plenty of people that I know that their default is to kind of retract, and a lot of that is because of upbringing, but I feel like, when we go to heal ourselves, if there was any time in our past or anything that needs to be healed about kind of stepping into our own power, that can sometimes come along with us wanting to stand up for ourselves. And if someone says something that doesn't sit well with us,
Hmm.
we might, want to let them know that right away. And we certainly can, because that's having boundaries, right? And self-respect and self-worth. And there is a way to do it that doesn't damage the other person, and it holds your integrity in a light that you would want it to be. So again, it's where we control ourselves. We cannot control what another person does or says, but we can control how we respond to it, or
Yep.
if we respond to it. Because sometimes, like you said, Jodi, the best thing we can do in the moment, if we feel ourselves getting, really agitated or worked up in some sort of way, it is both better for ourselves and for the other person or the other people involved to take a step back. That's where that pause is, whether it's a breath, whether it's a leaving the room, whether it's a going to sleep and waking up in the morning and, revisiting it, whatever that looks like. um, it is going to be, you are going to have a better outcome, and you are going to feel better about your response if you take that pause, take that moment, and really think about long term, what's the big picture here.
Hmm.
One thing that I love to, and you probably have heard of this before, but is it going to matter in 5 years from now,
Huge.
or 5 months from now, or whatever? Right? Sometimes, is it going to matter in 5 minutes from now? We can
And the
get
answer
worked
for
up.
me the other day was a hard yes.
Yeah, and a lot of things will, but
Right.
5 minutes from now, if it's not going to make a difference, then why in the world would you even say anything or react in any sort of way, right? And so, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, take take a step back and think, do I really need to respond at all? Or how would I respond knowing that in 5 years I won't even remember this? This will have zero impact. Then you can respond in a way that makes sense for that situation. And yes, there will be things that will matter. And so that's where that pause is going to be used for constructive response formulation, right?
So thank
Because,
you for the tee up because I have a document to show everybody. It's a great tool when you're complete.
okay, yeah,
When you're
great, go
complete.
for it.
Okay. So I'm going to share a screen. So I want to tell you that I'm so grateful because my doctor, Michelle Kukla, who's out of Palatine, Illinois. So here I was, uh, you know, on disability, and I'm just getting off disability at the time. So it was like 2016, 2017. And I'm like, well, I'm going back to work. I don't know what I'm going to do because, like I had an opinion about how people resolve issues. And I had an opinion about how people interact. And I had an opinion about how people break boundaries. Okay. So what this document is, which it's also, I put in the link on YouTube. Facebook is not playing nice today. Okay. This is from Yale University. Okay. And it's called DESK. D is in David, E is in Edward, S is in Sam, C is in Cat. And it's how to make your difficult conversations more effective. And what we're really just basically doing is asking people to describe the behavior as completely and objectively as possible, just the facts. So that means you're not putting in a story. Okay. You're going to express your feelings or thoughts about the behavior or situation. And you're always going to phrase your statements as an I statement, not a you statement, because the you statements are going to put people on defense, and an I statement allows them to hear you. If you're attacking somebody and saying you did fill in the blank, they are just not going to hear you, and you're not going to be heard. So I statements. I would also add to that, you don't ever want to express the feelings of someone else. These are about your feelings. As soon as you start expressing the feelings of someone other than yourself, you are now comparing. And on the map of consciousness, that is very low. It's in the red zone, okay? Because it causes shame. Okay, so then after that, you're going to specify what behavior or outcome that you prefer to happen. Like, I would like us to work together on the setup for the next presentation. But the really great thing, a lot of people say, hey, this is what I need, or this is what I would like, or this is what I would prefer. But they don't give a consequence when this happens or doesn't happen. So the positive and the not positive. And the consequence is this way we can complete the setup in less time, giving us both a chance to gather our thoughts before we present. Well, or it could be if we don't complete the setup together, we're going to be burning the candle at both ends. We're going to be frazzled. You can share about what you believe could be the outcome that's, negative. So like that. So, so that's, a great tool. I've been using this tool probably 9 or 10 years now. Say hi to Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
We love Chris. So this tool is, again, presented. It's a link on YouTube. You can just go there. It'll take you straight to the Yale University education website. There's also information there about the full book that goes with this. And no, I didn't write that book. So there you go. But when we have a structured way to share with people what we want, that also encourages the pause, because you have to think through, what do I actually really want, right? What is actually the situation. When people focus on stories of the situation versus the facts, the stories will take you in a downward spiral, causing those racing thoughts to be better than racing. I don't even know what a word is for that. Maybe you do. So that's another solution that I offer my clients when they're trying to create boundaries. And why would we mention boundaries? Because oftentimes people aren't pausing because they're triggered, and they're triggered because their boundaries have been blown. Your turn. Should I tee you up with a better
triggers are huge, and that's why practicing the pause in all different areas is so important, because when we are triggered, what's going to come out is going to be whatever is most natural, like those patterns I was talking about. So when you can disrupt the pattern, it's going to give you the opportunity to neutralize this and emotion on it, right? And then once you neutralize it, you can then reprogram it the other way. And that might look like, instead of being triggered, you think, okay, this is giving me an opportunity to choose differently. And every time we take the opportunity to choose differently than we would have in the past, we are growing, we are learning, we are breaking that pattern. And all of the things, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I would venture to say all of the things that we are unhappy with in our life is because of a pattern that we get into, whether it's a reactionary pattern, whether it's a mental, thought pattern, whether it's a limiting belief pattern. All of these things are patterns because we are where we are today based on our patterns, based on what we think about, which turn into patterns, which creates our life. So if we don't like where we are, then we need to look at the pattern. And behind that pattern is a thought. It's a thought process. And so that's why reprogramming is so necessary, because it's at the core of really our desired outcome for our life. If we want anything to change in our life, we have to make that change.
Yeah. So, and there are many ways to break patterns. I'm board certified in neuro-linguistic programming. Both Michelle and I access Akashic records, another way to break a pattern, right? It's the start of it. There's, creating accountability checklists for yourself and being your own buddy, and intention and prayer. There's the all clear protocol that I created. Well, cancel. I didn't create it. I just downloaded it. God gave it. That allows you to clear patterns and frequencies. And interestingly enough, yesterday I had an additional podcast with Dr. Gary Montemare out of the Cayman Islands, who measures, Michelle, what you and I do. He measures, yeah. Like, cat's meow, right? So what he also said, which I thought was very interesting and of course brilliant, is that, and I think this to be true, that the patterns are carried on ancestral, right? And it's not that they're just carried on through our DNA and as you're born through the vaginal canal, but it's also spiritual patterns, right? There's, karmic patterns. There's, I don't know, the list is long. And Susan dishes it out, says, based on karma largely. Yeah, you should listen to yesterday's show if you want to talk about karma. Karma is not what you think it is, but yeah. Or at least based on our conversation, Susan, and Christopher Silva, acupuncturist out of Illinois, he says, how long should the pause be? Or is it as long a pause as needed? Michelle, you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's going to be situational. So yes, to the last part of your question, as long of a pause as is needed, because in something very minimal, like I said, is this going to matter in 5 minutes? If you say no, then the pause is going to be pretty quick. You're going to say, well, that's silly of me to hold on to this. I'm just going to let this go, maybe, right? If it's something that is going to matter in 5 years from now, then that holds a heavy weight. So the pause is going to maybe be longer because you really want to not only keep your own integrity there, but you really want to get your point across, right? If someone is disrespecting you or they've crossed a boundary, fill in the blank, and that's going to matter, that is very important, it's a heavy weight, then you definitely want to take the time to form your words, so that not only can your desire be known, but possibly also the reason behind it. Because if it's something that big, it may take a longer conversation. So you may want to kind of play that out in your mind. And And again, take that charge off of it, because when your response is emotionally charged, first of all, your clarity goes out the window. So whatever it is you're trying to say, you might think you're getting the point across in a way that is clear, but you're not. And therefore, what you said is not really getting through to the person. And so you've really said all that for nothing. So when you take that pause and you go through and you release that emotional charge, you can then come up with almost a script of sorts, really, of bullet points of what you want to say, how you want to convey it, so that, like the desk assessment says, you're not putting them on the defense. You're not saying you do this and this and this and this. You say, I want to share with you how this makes me feel. And then you can open that space of communication up to clarity, to full understanding. So those types of situations are going to take longer than, others would. Hope that made sense.
Total. And, I want to share something that I think is really important about, I'm just trying to see if I can get a good image of it. Yeah, it's good enough. Just do that. There we go. So let's talk about the emotional charge, because really that's your underlying time bomb.
That's why you need the pause in the first place.
God bless you, right? So here, I'm going to share a screen. I just found a good image on LinkedIn. So if we can be impeccable with our word, right? Speak with integrity. This is from the 4 agreements. Say only what you mean, and avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others, and use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Such a powerful, powerful agreement. But the next agreement, which I think for me is, I don't know, they're all good. Don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. That goes back to that desk. And communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and the big one, drama. And they said, with just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. So that's going back and being the kindergartner, right? Being the kid who just has a question, raises their hand in class, assuming that we're allowed to be seen and heard. No trigger. Always do your best. And this is really huge. Your best is going to change from moment to moment, and it will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. And under any circumstance, simply do your best, and you'll avoid self-judgment, another trigger, self-abuse, another trigger, and regret, another trigger. And so what I would ask you, Michelle, because I have a couple ways of getting rid of these triggers, but I would really like for you to share what you have as a solution for releasing triggers, right? Yeah.
So there's so many different things beyond the energy work that I do. Something that's really easy to do, and it's accessible to everyone. There's tons of free videos on YouTube for tapping or EFT.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's, if you haven't looked into it, just look up tapping or EFT on YouTube. And there's a lot of practitioners that have videos that will walk you through how to release that emotional charge that you might be getting on something, or limiting beliefs, all sorts of things. Another way, really, for me, I do a lot of mindset work, and mindset work is reprogramming. And so if we can understand where that trigger is coming from, And I do some things that I don't have to know where the trigger is coming from, and that's really great. However, if you are trying to do this yourself, and it is possible to do it yourself, it is. You can really dig deep. You have to be super, super honest with yourself. Sometimes it is harder when something is really, really ingrained in you. It's harder to bring to the surface on your own. So, that's where we come into play if you're not able to do it. But let's say you are. So you feel a trigger and you ask questions, just like Jodi was saying. Be that 3-year-old. Ask question. Okay, why did that upset me? Okay, it is, I feel disrespected. Okay, why do I feel disrespected? Because here's the thing, not everybody would have the same reaction to the same thing. So if somebody else doesn't feel disrespected when XYZ does ABC, well, then that's a personal thing. Okay, well, so ask, why do I feel disrespected? Well, because it makes me feel like I did when I was 8 years old and blah, 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 blah happened. And now every time this thing happens, I feel disrespected. Okay. So you see, you keep going and going and going until you get to the core. And then you can bring that to the surface and say, okay, does that truly equal disrespect in my mind?
Right.
Or is it something that I was told was disrespectful, or whatever I was dealing with at 8 years old, but now I'm 35, now I'm 52, now I'm 81. It doesn't have to feel this way anymore, right? So we can literally tell ourselves, no, that's not how it feels. That's not the intention, and that's not how it feels. I don't have to feel that way anymore. I can control how I feel. Many people will challenge that, but we can.
Well, you absolutely can control how you feel. The All Clear protocol, which is free on my blog, people can just, you can text me at 847-738-0242, and I'll send you a link to that, right? And it's a free protocol for you, complete with a video, so you can clear that frequency from your field. Okay, that energy, that thing that's got you anchored into a trigger, an emotional response, it's not helping you. You can use a brain tap, right? You can use a bod, although I love my bod. I really, really do. I think most of the world honestly needs a brain tap, not a bod. Um, when I was healing, I absolutely used my bod. It's based in binaural beats. The brain tap has binaural beats and solfeggio and all of that, but they use NLP, neuro linguistic programming, to help you reframe your thoughts. And I know that I think that Michelle agrees with me, but having a way to do self-care is a really big deal, right? So, and there's a 14-day free trial, and I did put the link in the thread for those people who want to do a mindset reset or brain fitness for free for 14 days. And then I would say to help you with the pause, walk outside, get the sun, be barefoot on the ground. I mean, these things are free for you, but I still also think, honestly, look, we are in a situation where people are in high stress. And I'm just going to give a few things that are happening. The earth is changing, right? And if you need evidence that the earth is changing, look at the geomagnetic storms, look at the earthquakes, look at the volcanoes, look at the hurricanes. She's talking, people. You better listen. Number one. And that energy, the radiation from the solar flares. Call my friend Chris Fetchula. She'll talk to you about that all day long. So this girl right here, she knows her stuff on that. And so if you have a question about whether or not that's impacting you, think about how you've been feeling the last year. Are your stress levels higher, right? So there are ways to combat what's going on in the Earth's frequency. And that's with grounding and grounding mats and using frequencies. Some of us like using frequencies, some of us don't. Tomato, tomato. That's what I say to that, right? You choose you. The other thing, I have to tell you, if I thought it was my imagination, first, the fact that there's, I don't know, like 2,500 studies on it, hydrogen water. Hydrogen water is amazing. I'm drinking it right now. There's so many studies on how it supports your emotional health, right? And so if you want to change the cellular memories, change the cells, change the cells. And let's say, let's say I was the fluke and we didn't have the 2,500 studies. I give it to my birds in a syringe, right? I put it right through their mouth to make sure that they're getting it, because after 2 hours of sitting out, the water loses its density of hydrogen. And you can, as an empath, I can feel the difference in them. But Tinkerbell, wow. I mean, she, at first, her tail was off to the side. So she flew and her tail would be off to the side. And I was using, minerals and hydrogen water. And then I don't do extra minerals anymore for her, because I mean, she gets it in her food and water supply, but um, she's flying higher. I mean, and keep in mind, for those who don't know me and don't know Tinkerbell, when I got her, couldn't fly. So to understand the dynamics of what connecting to nature and what God had intended for us, that's why I made sure I said at the beginning of the show, I'm making sure they get outside. They need the sun. So do you, and I think it's really important to understand these tools. And almost forgot, I just want to share this page. So my book um, has what so when that my book, Emotional Healing, Toxic Free Living, Model New Behaviors and Reset Old Belief Systems, is available for purchase on Amazon. It's also going to be just about every bookstore where it's being launched in 40,000 different locations as we speak. We're like this close. But I want to tell you about the feedback that I got from one of my favorite clients. And she's not my favorite client because she gave me the feedback. What she said was, the biggest gift to this book was not just my story and giving people permission to be, but the fact that in every chapter, at the end of the chapter, in the personal development section, we have QR codes. You have access to all the people that I studied for. Most of it's free, people. So I'm connecting you to goodness. Okay. So I mean, and the book's not expensive. It's $20, right? 18. And then the workbook is $12.12. So the point is, you have a path to wellness, to reclaiming your health, that's filled with ease and grace at your own pace. Because I can tell you that, like I saw someone yesterday, a new client out of Vegas, and, they find it overwhelming. I get you. Reclaiming your health is overwhelming, especially when you find out you've been lied to. So, right? That alone. Thoughts, Michelle?
Yeah, I was just going to also say, exercise is something that I will do also. Yes, getting outside, taking a walk, but sometimes that's not enough. So, I'll do an exercise class or go to the gym or, lift some weights or whatever, so that it really releases that energy. Because no, I won't even say almost, 100% of the time, if I can step away from something and come down off of that emotional charge, I am not only going to have more clarity, but I'm going to see it differently. My perspective will have changed. And so often in the moment, in the heat of the moment, whatever that looks like, it can be hurt, it can be anger, whatever that is, right? We cannot see clearly because all we're seeing through the lens of that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we take ourselves out of the situation, we can then be more objective. And also, people, we need to understand that we're not the only person in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So the other person has a perspective as well. Might it be that we have a responsibility in this situation that might be cause for some of this? I would venture to say probably. So then it allows us to look at ourselves and see our own role in the situation and perhaps see things from the other person's perspective. And then we really do have a full picture of what's going on. And then we can respond appropriately in a way that also respects the other person. Because oftentimes when we don't pause, the way we respond or react is in some way disrespectful to the other person as well, whether it makes them feel invalidated, whether that, there's all sorts of things, right? So we really want to use this pause not only for ourselves, but for the other person as well. And in the end, our relationships will be better, not only with other people, but with ourselves, because then we learn to trust ourselves. We learn to trust the fact that, okay, I can handle anything that comes in my path because I know that I have the power to pause and
Mm-hmm.
reflect and then respond. And therefore, we don't fear anything that happens because we know that we can trust ourselves to do the right thing. And the right thing may be in that moment to walk away. So that's what I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's really brilliant, right? And I know that sometimes I was not willing to walk away from certain things
Me neither.
because I'm like, no, solve it now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what people don't understand, and I didn't understand, is that sometimes people's brains get stuck and they can't solve it now. They look, one of the biggest, if you want to talk about pandemics, is that people don't have blood flow right now, substantial blood flow to the prefrontal cortex of the brain, according to Dr. Patrick Porter of BrainTap. He's like, that's the biggest problem we have right now. People's prefrontal cortex doesn't have enough blood flow. So his BrainTap helps with that, but so does Jeremy Freeman's upgrade formula, which sends blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. So if you need a discount code for that, you let me know. So we have to, and look, I was the first one. I'll be the first one to tell you, I sometimes didn't honor that, because I had a trigger. Okay, so let's talk, right? Why didn't I honor it? Well, because growing up, my mom was a withholder and she would go to silence. And so I had a trigger that if somebody went to silence, it was a personal rejection of myself, right? Well, it had nothing to do with me, not with her and not with others. It's their inability to speak at that point in time because they either have a physical issue, a spiritual issue, or a mental, which I think is spiritual too. But, it's, one of the three T's: toxins, traumas, or thoughts. Just that simple. Let's simplify. TTT, toxins, traumas, thoughts. And so when we understand, going back to the 4 agreements, that not to take things personally, what's happening for people, this is not about you, people, right? Now, I will say sometimes what happens is a test of the universe to see how you're going to respond or react. Have you learned your lesson? Right? And then the other part can be, it's an opportunity for you to learn, or an opportunity for you to give, or an opportunity to just shut the F up. Just saying. Yeah. Right. So, because sometimes you just don't need to say squat.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from? Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for showing up today. We have Christopher Silva, Susan, Chris Fetchula, Nanaba. Nanaba. You freak me out every time I see nan because I think of bread and
Yeah, it's so
like
good.
I know it is good, but you're Nanaba to me, so I get confused. And anybody else who showed up incognito, we appreciate you too. Um, join us next week. Gosh, I don't even know who we have on next week. Oh, so next week I have to publish the show. I have David Meltzer on. David Meltzer is my coach, right? And I'm part of his coaching community. David Meltzer is the epitome of what it means to be willing to be self-aware and to transform oneself and to lose any shame or blame in the midst of his transformation. And to me, he owns his greatness. In the same breath, he owns his vulnerability and his fact that he's still a mama's boy. He says, I'm a Jewish mama's boy. I'm like, go for it. My mom raised several too, right? It's actually a beautiful thing, right? That he can love his mother so much that way and own it and then still rise up, because sometimes a mama's boy has a bad connotation. But in this case, I'm going to say, let's go for it. Right. So with that, I want to just, I'm going to say a few thoughts to end the show. Michelle, I'd like you to share a few thoughts to end the show. What I want to say to you today is you have the power to do whatever it is that you choose to do in this world. My mom ooh, used to live in Barrington Hills in Illinois, and there was a staircase going upstairs, and it was white shag rug, if you remember those days. Shag rug. And she'd sit me down on the stair, and she'd say, Jodi, you have the power to be whatever you want to be. She'd tell me that all the time. We'd have little chats on the stairwell. So, people, if you're listening to this, I don't care who your mama was. Listen to my mama. My mama said, you have the power to be whatever you want to be. By the way, that goes for you too. Michelle?
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. You do have the power to create your future. So, like I said before, if you don't like what's in your reality currently, you can change that. And it all starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
You may think that your current circumstances are based on somebody else. Uh, it's really not true. And I get a lot of pushback on this, and we could spend a whole lot of time talking about why I believe that it begins with you. But all that being said, you can change and you can start today. Will your entire world look different tomorrow? Probably not. But if you start today, it's going to look a lot different, a lot quicker than if you don't start today. So take your power back, pause when needed, because it's going to make you feel better about yourself. And then the world around you is going to start changing, and it's inevitable. So just rely on that and put your faith in yourself. Trust yourself. You can do it.
Mm-hmm. Faith in yourself and God, higher power to lead you on your way, right? So we'll be here next week with David Meltzer. The week after that, I have Dr. Patrick Porter for the CEO of BrainTap. The week after that, I don't remember, but we've got quite the lineup, people. I'm just gonna say. So, and actually, I will check real quick. See, I think we have Gary Kiss, who is wow. So Gary, he's an energy being. and he navigates multiple dimensions at a time. So you're going to want to show up for that one. All right, everybody. I love you all. Thank you for being here. God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.
Mhm.
Mhm.